There is a secret that the mystics have known for centuries, a truth so powerful that once understood it transforms everything. Yet most people live their entire lives without ever grasping it. They chase change through force and effort and struggle believing that if they just work harder or want something badly enough reality will bend to their will, but nothing changes. Nothing ever truly changes until this one fundamental principle is understood. And tonight I'm going to reveal to you what Genevieve Behrend discovered over a century ago, the invisible law that governs all manifestation, all creation, all transformation, and why your life remains exactly the same no matter how desperately you try to change it. Because you've been approaching it backwards, you've been pushing against a locked door when the key was in your pocket all along. What you're about to hear is not theory, it's not philosophy, it's not another self-help platitude. This is the living truth that transformed Behrend's life from poverty and limitation to abundance and freedom. The same truth that has been concealed in plain sight throughout history waiting for those ready to see it. If you're watching this, it means you're ready. It means something within you is calling for the deeper understanding. So before we begin, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because what we're exploring together goes far beyond surface-level teachings. This is about awakening to your true nature as a creator, and that journey requires commitment. It requires your willingness to see what you've been blind to. So subscribe now and let's begin this mystical exploration together. The illusion of separation. Genevieve Behrend understood something that most people never grasp in their entire lifetime. She understood that the reason nothing changes in your life is because you believe you are separate from the thing you desire. You stand here, and your dream stands there, and between you stretches an impossible distance filled with obstacles and challenges and reasons why it cannot be. This is the grand illusion. This is the veil that keeps humanity trapped in cycles of wanting and lacking and struggling because you see yourself as separate from your desire. You must reach for it. You must chase it. You must somehow bridge that gap through effort and force and manipulation of external circumstances, and so you exhaust yourself. You push and strive and fight against reality believing that change comes from the outside in. But Behrend discovered the mystical truth that all the great teachers have known: there is no separation. There never was. The distance between you and your desire is an optical illusion created by the limited perception of the physical senses. In truth, you and your desire are one. You exist in the same field of infinite intelligence, the same ocean of creative power, the same unified consciousness that Behrend called the universal mind. When you look at a wave in the ocean and you look at another wave across the vast expanse of water, it appears they are separate, two distinct entities existing in different locations. But this is only appearance. In reality, both waves are the ocean itself. There is no separation between them. They arise from the same source. They are made of the same substance. They return to the same unity. And this is the mystical truth about you and everything you desire. You are not separate from abundance. You are not separate from love. You are not separate from health or success or joy. You are all of it already. You are the ocean temporarily believing itself to be only a wave. And from that misidentification, all suffering and limitation arise. Behrend wrote that the universal mind is the source of all things. It is the creative power that brings worlds into being, that transforms the invisible into the visible, that takes thought and makes it substance. And here is what changes everything. You are not outside this universal mind looking in. You are not a separate entity hoping to gain its favor or earn its blessings. You are the universal mind individualized. You are the infinite expressing itself as you. The entire ocean is present in every single wave. The full power of creation flows through you in this very moment. It has never stopped flowing. You've simply been unaware of it. You've been like someone standing in a river dying of thirst because they don't recognize the water surrounding them. This is why nothing changes through effort alone, because effort is based on the belief in separation. When you try to force change, you're declaring that you are here and change is there, and you must somehow make something happen through willpower and action. But Behrend teaches us that real change, lasting transformation, comes not from force but from recognition, not from doing but from being, not from becoming something you're not but from realizing what you already are. Imagine for a moment that you could truly grasp this, not just intellectually but in the very cells of your body, in the depths of your consciousness. What would happen if you really understood that there is no distance between you and your fulfilled desire? What if you could see that the only thing standing between you and the life you dream of is your own belief in separation? Behrend spent years studying under Thomas Troward, learning the science of mind, the principles of mental causation, the laws that govern the relationship between thought and manifestation, and what she discovered is that thought is not some weak ephemeral thing. Thought is creative substance. Thought is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between the formless and the formed. Your thoughts are not happening inside your head as some private experience disconnected from reality. Your thoughts are the very fabric of your reality. They are the invisible patterns that shape and mold the substance of the universal mind into the experiences of your life. But here's what most people miss. Most people try to use thought as a tool to manipulate external circumstances. They think positive, they affirm, they visualize, and then they wait for something outside themselves to change. They wait for the money to appear, for the her relationship to manifest, for the opportunity to arrive. And when it doesn't happen or doesn't happen fast enough, they conclude that this mystical teaching doesn't work, that manifestation is a fantasy, that they must return to the struggle and the effort and the separation. But Behrend would tell you that this approach still contains the fundamental error. It still operates from the belief that you are here and your desire is there, that you must use thought to create something that doesn't yet exist. The truth is far more mystical and far more immediate. Your desire already exists. Not in some future moment when conditions align, but right now in the invisible realm of pure potential. Everything that can ever be already exists in the universal mind. Every possible version of your life, every potential reality, every dream and aspiration. It all exists now in the formless realm of infinite possibility. And your consciousness, your awareness, your mental state is what determines which of these infinite possibilities becomes your experienced reality. You're not creating something new. You're selecting from infinite versions of what already is. This is the mystical secret that changes everything. When you desire something, whether it's abundance or love or health or success, that desire didn't come from nowhere. It came from the universal mind itself. It arose within you because it already exists in the realm of possibility and it's calling you toward it. The desire is the universe's way of telling you that this experience is available to you, that it already belongs to you in the invisible, that all you must do is align your consciousness with it, and it will appear in your visible world. Behrend called this the law of visualization, but it's so much deeper than the modern understanding of visualization as some technique you practice for 15 minutes a day. True visualization is living from the consciousness of your desire fulfilled. It's inhabiting the mental state of the person who already has what you want. It's closing the gap of separation not through effort but through imagination, through feeling, through the mystical art of assuming the reality you wish to experience. When you truly understand this, when you really grasp that there is no separation between you and your fulfilled desire, then you stop chasing, you stop struggling, you stop trying to make something happen. Instead, you begin to live from the end. You begin to think and feel and act as the person who already has what you desire, because in the realm of consciousness, in the dimension of mind, you do already have it. You're not pretending, you're not faking it until you make it. You're recognizing what is already true in the invisible and allowing that truth to solidify into visible form. This is why nothing changes for most people, because they're operating from separation consciousness. They're trying to get something they don't have, trying to become someone they're not, trying to create a reality that seems distant and impossible. But the moment you shift from separation to unity, the moment you recognize that you and your desire are one in the universal mind, everything changes, not because you made it change through effort, but because you stopped resisting the natural flow of manifestation. You stopped blocking with your belief in limitation and impossibility. Behrend lived this truth. She didn't just teach it from theory. She went from being a struggling woman in London with no money and no prospects to manifesting passage to America, studying under the great Thomas Troward, and becoming one of the most successful mental science teachers of her era. She did this not through force or manipulation or lucky breaks. She did it by understanding and applying this one fundamental principle: there is no separation, there is only the one mind expressing itself in infinite ways, and you are that mind individualized. You are the creative power of the universe localized as you. And when you truly know this, when you feel it in your bones and think from it rather than about it, then nothing can remain unchanged. Your entire world must rearrange itself to match the consciousness you embody. This is not magic, this is law, the law of mind, the law of consciousness. The law that Behrend discovered and shared with all who had ears to hear. But knowing this intellectually is not enough. Understanding it as a concept will not change your life, because the challenge is not in learning this principle but in unlearning everything that contradicts it. And that brings us to the second great obstacle that keeps nothing from changing in your life: the invisible chains that bind you to the past and to limitation, the patterns that run so deep you don't even know they're there. The invisible chains of conditioning. Genevieve Behrend knew that between understanding a truth and living that truth there exists a vast territory filled with resistance and conditioning and unconscious patterns that sabotage every attempt at transformation. This is where most seekers lose their way. They learn the principle of unity. They grasp intellectually that they are not separate from their desires. They understand that consciousness creates reality. And yet nothing changes, or things change briefly only to return to the familiar patterns of limitation and struggle. Why? Because consciousness is like an iceberg. What you're aware of, what you can see and think about and examine, that's only the tip, the small portion visible above the waterline. But beneath the surface in the dark depths of your unconscious mind there exists a massive structure of beliefs and assumptions and conditioning that you're completely unaware of. And this hidden structure is what's actually running your life. It's what's actually creating your reality moment by moment. Behrend understood that the conscious mind can know one thing while the subconscious mind believes something entirely different. You can consciously affirm abundance while your subconscious is saturated with poverty consciousness. You can consciously desire love while your subconscious is convinced you're unworthy of it. You can consciously pursue success while your subconscious is programmed for failure. And in this battle between conscious intention and subconscious belief, the subconscious wins every single time. Not because it's more powerful but because it's the deeper foundation, it's the soil from which your experiences grow. Your conscious thoughts are like seeds you plant on the surface. But if the soil itself is toxic, if it's filled with the poison of limiting beliefs and negative conditioning, then those seeds cannot take root and flourish. This is the invisible chain that keeps people bound to lives they don't want. They're trying to create change at the conscious level while the subconscious remains unchanged. And Behrend teaches us that this is precisely why most attempts at transformation fail. You cannot override the subconscious through willpower. You cannot defeat it through positive thinking. You cannot ignore it and hope it will stop influencing your life. Instead, you must bring consciousness to the unconscious. You must illuminate the darkness. You must become aware of the hidden beliefs and assumptions that have been running your life from behind the scenes. And here's what makes this work so challenging. These beliefs and assumptions were not formed by you. You did not consciously choose them. They were implanted in your consciousness before you had the capacity to question them. When you were a child absorbing everything from your environment like a sponge, you learned what was possible and what was impossible. You learned what kind of person you were and what kind of life you could have. You learned about money and relationships and success and worthiness, not through explicit teaching but through osmosis, through the attitudes and beliefs and behaviors of the people around you, through the culture you were born into, through experiences that happened when you were too young to understand them, and all of this conditioning settled into your subconscious mind where it became the invisible operating system running your life. Behrend called this the race consciousness, the collective belief system of humanity that each individual inherits simply by being born into this world. It's the accumulation of centuries of limitation thinking, of lack and struggle and separation, of beliefs about what's hard and what's easy, about who deserves good things and who doesn't, about how reality works and what the rules are. And unless you consciously identify and reject these inherited beliefs, they will continue to create your reality no matter what you consciously desire. Imagine you're trying to drive to a new destination, but your GPS is programmed with the wrong address. You can want to go somewhere new, you can set the intention, you can start driving, but if the GPS keeps routing you back to the old address, you'll never arrive at the new destination. This is what the subconscious does. It has a program, a set of instructions about who you are and what your life looks like, and no matter what you consciously want, it keeps creating the reality that matches its programming. Behrend discovered that the way to change this program is not through force but through impression. The subconscious mind is impressionable. It accepts whatever is repeatedly impressed upon it with feeling and conviction. It doesn't judge or analyze or decide what's true. It simply accepts and creates accordingly. This is both the problem and the solution. The problem is that your subconscious has been impressed with limiting beliefs for years or decades. These beliefs have been reinforced over and over through repetition and emotion until they became the foundation of your identity and your reality. But the solution is that you can impress new beliefs upon your subconscious. You can reprogram it. You can install a new operating system. But you must do it the same way the old programming was installed, through repetition, through feeling, through conviction, through the mystical art of impressing your subconscious with the reality you desire to experience. Behrend taught a specific method for this which she called mental picturing or visualization. But again, this is not the casual daydreaming that most people think of when they hear the word visualization. This is a disciplined, mystical practice of entering into the feeling of your wish fulfilled, of assuming the consciousness of the person who already has what you desire, of living mentally in the reality you wish to experience until that reality becomes more real to you than your current circumstances. When you do this with consistency and feeling something remarkable happens, your subconscious begins to accept this new reality as the true reality. It begins to reorganize itself around this new pattern. It begins to create circumstances and opportunities and synchronicities that align with this new programming, and your external world must change because it's simply a reflection of your internal world. It's the outpicturing of your consciousness, but here's where most people stumble. They try this for a few days or a few weeks, they visualize and affirm and feel good for a moment, but then they return to their habitual thinking, they go back to the old patterns of worry and doubt and limitation, they let the evidence of their current circumstances convince them that nothing is changing, and in doing so they reinforce the old programming, they re-impress the subconscious with limitation, and so nothing changes. Behrend would tell you that this work requires persistence, it requires faith, not blind belief but the kind of faith that is actually loyalty to your vision, loyalty to the reality you're claiming, loyalty to the truth of your unity with the universal mind, even when the physical senses scream that it's not true. This is the mystical path. It's not for the faint of heart, it's not a quick fix or an easy shortcut, it's the deliberate and conscious reprogramming of your entire being. It's the courageous choice to reject the race consciousness and claim your individual power as a creator. And when you do this, when you persist in impressing your subconscious with your desired reality, when you refuse to be moved by appearances or circumstances or the opinions of others, when you remain faithful to your vision with the certainty of one who knows that consciousness creates reality, then the invisible chains begin to break, the conditioning begins to dissolve, the old programming loses its power, and your life begins to reflect the new consciousness you've cultivated. Behrend herself was a living example of this. She came from a background that offered her no advantages. She had no money, no connections, no obvious path to the life she desired. But she had something far more powerful. She had the understanding that her consciousness determined her reality, and she had the discipline to persist in impressing her subconscious with her vision until that vision became her lived experience. She wanted to study with Thomas Troward, who was in England, while she was in America with no means to get there. The logical mind would say it was impossible. The race consciousness would say she should accept her limitations and give up the dream. But Behrend knew better. She knew that if she could embody the consciousness of someone who was already in England studying with Troward, if she could live in that reality mentally and emotionally, then the universal mind would arrange the circumstances to make it happen, and that's exactly what occurred. She impressed her subconscious so deeply with this reality that opportunities appeared, money manifested, obstacles dissolved, and she found herself exactly where she had been living mentally. This is not a fairy tale. This is the scientific application of mental law. This is what happens when you free yourself from the invisible chains of conditioning and begin to consciously direct your subconscious mind. But you must understand that this freedom is not given, it's claimed. It's earned through the daily practice of returning to your vision, of refusing to accept the limitations that others accept, of persisting in your assumption of your wish fulfilled even when everything in your visible world contradicts it. The chains are invisible not because they're weak but because they're so familiar you don't notice them. You think the way you think is just the way things are. You think your beliefs about yourself and life are simply truth rather than conditioning. You think your automatic reactions and habitual patterns are your personality rather than programming. But once you see them, once you bring consciousness to the unconscious, once you recognize that these chains are not iron but imagination, not facts but fiction, not reality but learned limitation, then you can begin the sacred work of breaking free. And this work happens not in some distant future but right now, in this moment and the next and the next. Every time you catch yourself thinking a limiting thought and consciously replace it with an empowering one, every time you feel the pull of the old pattern and choose to feel something different, every time you notice your attention drifting to what you don't want and redirect it to what you do want, you're breaking the chains, you're reprogramming the subconscious, you're freeing yourself from the conditioning that has kept nothing from changing in your life. And as these chains begin to break, as your consciousness begins to shift, you'll discover something that Behrend considered absolutely essential to the manifestation process, something that most people completely overlook in their rush to get what they want, the secret ingredient that turns mental work into physical reality. The bridge between invisible and visible. There is a mysterious bridge between the invisible realm of consciousness and the visible realm of physical manifestation, and Genevieve Behrend understood that most people never cross this bridge because they don't know it exists. They think that mental work alone should produce results. They visualize and affirm and think positively, and then they sit back and wait for their desires to materialize out of thin air. And when nothing happens, they conclude that the mystical teachings are false. That consciousness doesn't really create reality, that they've wasted their time on spiritual fantasies. But Behrend would tell you that these people have missed the most crucial part of the process. They've done the inner work, but they've failed to provide the bridge. They've planted the seed, but they've refused to water it. They've set the destination, but they've refused to take the journey. Because here's the truth that makes all the difference. Consciousness creates reality, but it does so through you, through your actions, through your willingness to move in the direction of your vision. The universal mind has infinite power, but it can only work through the channels you provide. It can only manifest in your life through your cooperation, your participation, your willingness to act as if your desire is already certain. Behrend called this expectant attention. It's the state of consciousness that combines absolute certainty in the invisible with alert responsiveness in the visible. You're not sitting passively waiting for some magical intervention. You're actively participating in the unfolding of your vision. You're watching for opportunities, following intuitive impulses, taking inspired action, not from desperation or force but from the calm expectation of one who knows that what they seek is already seeking them. This is the bridge. This expectant attention that keeps you connected to your vision while remaining present and responsive to the guidance of the universal mind as it arranges circumstances and orchestrates events to bring your desire into manifestation. But here's what most people do instead. They do their mental work in the morning, they visualize for 15 minutes, they affirm their desires, they feel good, and then they spend the rest of the day completely disconnected from that vision. They return to habitual consciousness, they react to circumstances, they engage with problems and limitations, they think and speak and act as the person they've always been rather than the person they're becoming, and in doing so they break the bridge, they sever the connection between the invisible and the visible, they send mixed signals to the universal mind. Behrend taught that the key is to maintain your consciousness throughout the day. Not through constant effort or strain but through regular return. Whenever you notice your attention has drifted to the old patterns, to worry or doubt or limitation, you gently return it to your vision. You reconnect with the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you re-establish the bridge, and gradually this becomes more natural. Your new consciousness becomes your habitual consciousness, your vision becomes more real to you than your current circumstances, and at that point manifestation is inevitable. It's not a matter of if but when. Because you've built a solid bridge between the invisible and the visible, and the creative power of the universal mind is flowing freely across it. But building this bridge requires something that modern culture has almost entirely lost. It requires patience, it requires trust, it requires the willingness to persist in your consciousness even when you see no immediate evidence of change. Behrend lived in a time before instant gratification, before same-day delivery and instant messaging and the expectation that everything should happen immediately. She understood that there is a gestation period between seed and harvest, between conception and birth, between the invisible thought and the visible thing. This is not a design flaw, this is divine wisdom, because if your every thought manifested instantly you would create chaos, you would materialize all your fears and doubts and unconscious negativity along with your desires. The delay is a gift, it gives you time to refine your consciousness, to eliminate the contradictions, to become crystal clear about what you truly want and to embody the consciousness of the person who has it. And during this gestation period the only thing you can do is trust. Trust that the seed you've planted in the invisible is growing even though you can't see it yet. Trust that the universal mind is orchestrating events in ways you cannot perceive. Trust that your faithful persistence in consciousness is creating real effects in the invisible realm that must eventually appear in the visible. This trust is not blind faith. It's based on understanding, on the knowledge that consciousness is creative, that the universal mind is the only power, that there is no separation between you and your desire. When you really know these things, then trust is natural. It's the logical response to understanding how reality works. But when you don't truly know these things, when you still harbor doubts and uncertainties, when you still believe in the power of circumstances and conditions to prevent your good, then trust is impossible. You'll be constantly checking for evidence, constantly wondering if it's working, constantly wavering between hope and despair, and this wavering is what keeps the bridge from solidifying. Behrend would say that you must come to a point of settled conviction, a point where you're no longer trying to manifest, no longer hoping it will work, no longer questioning whether you'll receive your desire, but instead you simply know, you know with the same certainty that you know the sun will rise tomorrow. You know because you understand the law, you've seen it work in your life, you've built a foundation of knowing through study and practice and experience, and from that foundation of knowing you move forward with expectant attention, watching for the ways your desire will manifest, alert to opportunities and intuitive guidance, willing to take inspired action when the moment calls for it. This is the dance between faith and works, between consciousness and action, between the invisible and the visible. You're not forcing things to happen through effort alone. But you're also not passively waiting for things to happen without your participation. You're co-creating with the universal mind. You're providing the consciousness and the attention and the action while the universal mind provides the power and the orchestration and the manifestation. Behrend discovered that when you operate this way, manifestation often happens in unexpected ways. You think your desire will come through one channel and it comes through another. You think you need to make certain things happen and instead they happen spontaneously. You think the path is complex and it turns out to be simple, because the universal mind has resources and methods and connections that your limited human mind cannot conceive. Your job is not to figure out how your desire will manifest. Your job is to maintain the consciousness of your wish fulfilled and to remain alert and responsive to the guidance that comes. This guidance might come as an intuition, a sudden urge to call someone, or go somewhere or do something. It might come as an opportunity that appears seemingly by chance. It might come as a door opening that you didn't even know existed. The form doesn't matter. What matters is your willingness to recognize it and act on it, because this is how the bridge is completed. The invisible thought travels through the bridge of your consciousness and your attention and your action until it manifests as visible reality. But if you ignore the intuition, if you dismiss the opportunity, if you refuse to act because it doesn't look like what you expected, then you break the bridge again, you interrupt the flow. You block the manifestation. Behrend would tell you that manifestation requires a kind of surrender. Not the surrender of defeat but the surrender of control. You must be willing to let your desire come in its own way and in its own time. You must be willing to trust the universal mind to orchestrate the details while you simply maintain your consciousness and follow your guidance. This is hard for the ego. The ego wants to control. It wants to know how and when and through what channel. It wants to force and manipulate and make things happen according to its plan. But the ego's plan is limited. It's based on past experience and current knowledge and visible circumstances, whereas the universal mind's plan is unlimited. It has access to all possibilities, all potentials, all paths, and it will always bring your desire through the path of least resistance, through the way that serves not only you but everyone involved, through the way that aligns with the greater good. So your work is to get your ego out of the way, to stop trying to control the process, to release your attachment to how it should happen and instead surrender to how it will happen. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become responsive. You stay in your consciousness, you maintain your vision, you take inspired action, but you let go of the need to force or manipulate or make it happen your way. You trust that your way is being made clear, that doors are opening, that circumstances are aligning, and when you operate from this place of surrender and trust and expectant attention, something magical happens. Life begins to flow, synchronicities multiply, opportunities appear, things that seemed difficult become easy, obstacles dissolve, and your desire manifests with a grace and ease that the struggling mind could never achieve. This is the bridge in action. This is consciousness creating reality through the willing cooperation of the individual with the universal mind. Behrend lived this way. She didn't struggle and force. She didn't try to make things happen through manipulation or control. She held her vision. She maintained her consciousness. She followed her guidance. She took inspired action, and she trusted. And through this approach she manifested things that seemed impossible. She created a life of abundance and impact and fulfillment, not because she was special or chosen or lucky, but because she understood and applied the principle of the bridge between invisible and visible. And you can do the same, starting right now. In this very moment you can begin to build this bridge by holding your vision in consciousness, by feeling the reality of your wish fulfilled, by trusting that the universal mind is working on your behalf, by remaining alert to guidance and opportunity, by taking inspired action when called to do so, and by surrendering the need to control how and when your desire will manifest. This is the path, this is the way, this is how. Consciousness creates reality not through magic or wishful thinking, but through the scientific application of mental law combined with practical participation in the manifestation process. But even with all of this understanding, even with the bridge built and the consciousness maintained, there remains one final element without which nothing can truly change. One last piece of the puzzle that Behrend considered the crown jewel of all mystical teaching, and it's the piece that most seekers never discover. The supreme secret. At the heart of all of Genevieve Behrend's teaching, at the core of every mystical tradition, at the center of the law of manifestation, there lies one supreme secret, and this secret is so simple that people overlook it, so obvious that they miss it, so profound that even when they hear it they don't truly understand it. And yet this secret is the difference between those who transform their lives and those who spend decades studying spiritual principles without ever experiencing real change. Are you ready to hear it? Are you ready to receive the truth that changes everything? Here it is. The supreme secret is this: you are not trying to get anything, you are not trying to become anyone, you are not trying to change anything, because in the realm of consciousness, in the dimension of the universal mind, you already are everything you desire to be and you already have everything you desire to have. This is not metaphor. This is not positive thinking. This is literal truth. In the invisible realm of pure potential all things exist now. There is no time, no sequence, no process of becoming. There is only being, only isness, only the eternal now that contains all possibilities simultaneously. And you in your true nature as the universal mind individualized are that eternal now. You are not bound by time. You are not limited by space, you are not constrained by circumstances. These are illusions of the physical senses, they are the limitations of the visible world. But you are not fundamentally a physical being having a spiritual experience, you are a spiritual being having a physical experience, you are consciousness itself temporarily focused through the lens of a human personality, and as consciousness you have access to all that is, was, or ever will be. Behrend discovered this truth through her own mystical experience. She realized that she was not a limited woman trying to reach an unlimited God. She was the unlimited God temporarily playing the role of a limited woman, and the moment she recognized this everything changed. Not because she became something she wasn't before, but because she stopped pretending to be something she never was. She stopped identifying with limitation and remembered her true identity as the creative power of the universe itself. And this recognition, this remembering, this return to truth is what manifestation really is. You're not creating something new, you're revealing what has always been, you're bringing into visibility what already exists in invisibility, you're allowing your physical experience to align with your spiritual reality. And the way you do this is through assumption, through assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, through living from the consciousness of the person who already has what you desire, because that person is not someone you will become in the future, that person is who you are right now in the realm of consciousness, in the dimension of truth. In the invisible reality that precedes and determines all visible reality. When you assume this consciousness, when you feel yourself to be this person, when you think and speak and act from this identity, you're not pretending or faking or lying to yourself. You're actually being more truthful than you've ever been. You're acknowledging your true nature, you're aligning with your spiritual reality, you're living from the truth that sets you free. Behrend would tell you that this is why affirmations alone don't work. Because when you affirm something you don't feel to be true, you're in a state of inner contradiction. Part of you is saying the words while another part is disagreeing, and this contradiction cancels out any creative power the affirmation might have had. But when you assume, when you simply take on the consciousness of your wish fulfilled without trying to convince yourself or argue with reality, when you just be it rather than trying to become it, there's no contradiction, there's only the pure creative power of consciousness claiming its own. This is the supreme secret, the mystical key that unlocks all doors. You don't have to earn your desires, you don't have to deserve them, you don't have to work for them or struggle for them or prove yourself worthy of them, because in consciousness they're already yours, they belong to you by divine right. You are the heir to all the riches of the universal mind, you are the beloved child of infinite intelligence, you are the individualized expression of the creative power that spoke universes into existence, and nothing in all of creation can keep you from your good except your own acceptance of limitation, your own belief in separation, your own identification with the small self rather than the true self. Behrend lived from this awareness. She didn't hope she would manifest her desires, she didn't wonder if she was worthy, she didn't question whether it was possible. She simply assumed the consciousness of having them and lived from that assumption with absolute conviction, and reality had no choice but to conform to her assumption because consciousness is the only creative power, there is nothing else, there is no force working against you, there is no devil or fate or karma or divine judgment preventing your good, there is only the law of consciousness, and that law is impersonal and impartial and absolute. It creates for everyone according to their consciousness, it manifests for the saint and the sinner alike. It responds to assumption, not to morality, to feeling, not to worthiness, to consciousness, not to effort. This is the great equalizer. This is why anyone can change their life regardless of their past or their circumstances or their current limitations, because the power is not in the external world, the power is in consciousness, and consciousness is what you are, not what you have, not something you need to develop or acquire, but what you fundamentally are in your deepest essence. So when Behrend teaches manifestation, she's not teaching you to get something you don't have, she's teaching you to recognize what you already are, she's teaching you to claim your inheritance, to step into your power, to remember your true identity as the creative force of the universe individualized. And when you truly grasp this, when you feel it not just in your mind but in your heart and soul and every cell of your being, when you know beyond all doubt that you and the universal mind are one, that there is no separation, that all things already exist in consciousness and you have access to all of it right now, then everything becomes possible, not in some future moment but in this very instant, because the transformation happens not in time but in consciousness. The moment you shift your consciousness from limitation to possibility, from separation to unity, from becoming to being, in that very moment your reality changes. It may take time for the physical world to catch up, for the visible to reflect the invisible, but the real change has already occurred. The real transformation is complete. You are no longer the person you were. You are the person you chose to be through your assumption, through your consciousness, through your recognition of your true nature. Behrend would tell you that this is the end of struggle, this is the end of lack, this is the end of limitation, because once you know who you really are, once you recognize your unity with the source of all creation, once you understand that consciousness is the only power and you are consciousness itself, then what is there to struggle against? What is there to lack? What limitation could possibly bind you? This is the freedom that the mystics speak of. This is the liberation that spiritual seekers have pursued throughout the ages, and it's not found through years of meditation or intense study or special initiation. It's found in a single moment of recognition, in the instant when you stop believing the illusion and start living the truth, when you stop identifying with the limited human self and start identifying with your unlimited divine nature. This recognition can happen right now, in this very moment. As you hear these words, you don't need to wait, you don't need to prepare, you don't need to become worthy or ready or qualified, you simply need to choose it, to claim it, to assume it, to be it, and in that assumption everything changes, not because you made something happen but because you stopped preventing it from happening, you stopped blocking the natural flow of abundance and love and joy and success that is your birthright, you stopped resisting your own magnificence, you stopped playing small in a universe that is infinite, and the moment you stop resisting, the moment you surrender to your true nature, the floodgates open, and everything you've ever desired comes rushing in, not as something foreign or external but as the natural expression of who you really are, because abundance is not something you get, it's something you are. Love is not something you find, it's something you are. Joy and peace and fulfillment are not states you achieve, they're the natural condition of consciousness when it's not distorted by false beliefs and limiting assumptions. This is what Behrend discovered, this is what she lived, this is what she taught to all who would listen, and this is what I'm sharing with you now, not as theory or philosophy or interesting ideas but as living truth, as practical mysticism, as the actual law that governs your life whether you're aware of it or not. The only question is whether you will continue to use this law unconsciously, creating limitation and struggle through unconscious negative assumptions, or whether you will begin to use it consciously, deliberately, creating the life you truly desire through the power of assumption, through the recognition of your unity with infinite intelligence, through the claiming of your identity as the creative power of the universe individualized. Behrend's life was a testament to this truth. She went from poverty to abundance, from obscurity to influence, from limitation to freedom, and she did it not through luck or circumstance or special favor, but through understanding and application of the principle I've shared with you tonight. The principle that consciousness creates reality, that you are not separate from your desires, that you already are in consciousness what you wish to become in experience, and that the bridge between these two is assumption, the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the living from the end, the being rather than becoming. This is why nothing changes until this is understood, because until you grasp that you are the creator of your reality, that consciousness is the only power, that there is no separation between you and infinite intelligence, you will continue to seek outside yourself, You will continue to struggle and effort and try to force change through manipulation of external circumstances. And all of that effort will produce minimal results because you're working against the law rather than with it. You're trying to change the reflection instead of changing the image. You're trying to rearrange the chess pieces when you need to change the player. But once you understand this principle, once you really get it at the deepest level, then everything becomes simple, not easy necessarily, because it requires discipline and persistence and faith. But simple because all you need to do is assume the consciousness of your wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact, until it solidifies into experience, until the invisible becomes visible. And this will happen, it must happen because it's law, not hope or belief or possibility but absolute certain law. Consciousness always creates after its own kind, assumption always manifests its equivalent. What you are in consciousness you must become an experience. There is no exception, there is no escape, there is only the working of the law, and when you align yourself with this law, when you work with it instead of against it, when you use it consciously and deliberately, then you become a master of your fate, a captain of your soul, a conscious creator of your reality. This is your destiny, this is your birthright, this is what you were born for, not to struggle and suffer and accept limitation but to create and express and manifest the infinite potential that lies within you, within your consciousness, within your unity with the universal mind. So the question before you now is simple. Will you continue to live in ignorance of this principle? Will you continue to accept the limitations that others accept? Will you continue to create unconsciously through default assumptions and inherited beliefs? Or will you claim your power? Will you recognize your true nature? Will you begin today, right now, in this very moment to assume the consciousness of your wish fulfilled and live from that assumption with unwavering faith and persistence until it manifests in your visible world? The choice is yours. It has always been yours. You are not a victim of circumstances, you are not at the mercy of fate, you are not limited by your past or your conditions or what others say is possible. You are consciousness itself, you are the universal mind individualized, you are the creative power of the universe expressing as you. And once you truly know this, once you feel it and live it and be it, nothing can remain unchanged. Your entire world must rearrange itself to match the consciousness you embody. This is the promise, this is the guarantee, this is the mystical truth that Genevieve Behrend discovered and lived and taught, and now you have it too. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you let it be just another interesting idea, another piece of information to file away and forget? Or will you let it transform you? Will you let it awaken you to your true nature? Will you let it set you free from the chains of limitation that have bound you for so long? The answer to that question will determine everything. It will determine whether your life changes or remains the same, whether you step into your power or continue to play small, whether you manifest your desires or continue to long for them from a distance. And that answer must come from you, from your willingness to see the truth, from your courage to claim your identity, from your commitment to persist in your assumption regardless of appearances or circumstances or the doubts that will inevitably arise. Behrend would tell you that this path is not for everyone. Not because some are chosen and others are not, but because not everyone is willing to take responsibility for their reality. Not everyone is willing to give up the comfort of victim consciousness. Not everyone is willing to do the inner work required to change their consciousness. But if you're still here, if you've listened this far, if something within you is resonating with these words, then you are ready, you are willing, you are capable, and all that remains is for you to begin, to take the first step, to make the first assumption, to claim your first conscious creation. Start with something that feels believable, something that excites you but doesn't trigger overwhelming doubt. Assume the consciousness of having it. Feel what it would feel like. Think from it rather than about it. Live as the person who already has it, and persist in that assumption without wavering, without checking for evidence, without wondering if it's working. Just persist in the assumption with the calm certainty of one who knows that consciousness creates reality. And watch what happens. Watch how circumstances begin to shift, how opportunities appear, how synchronicities multiply, how the invisible begins to become visible. And as you see this principle work in small things, your faith will grow, your understanding will deepen, your ability to assume will strengthen, and you'll be ready for bigger assumptions, greater manifestations, more profound transformations, until eventually you're living the life you once only dreamed of, not because you got lucky or worked hard or somehow earned it, but because you understood and applied the principle that Genevieve Behrend spent her life teaching, the principle that nothing changes until this is understood, that you are not separate from your desires, that consciousness creates reality, that assumption is the bridge between invisible and visible, and that you are the universal mind individualized with all power and all possibility. Available to you right here, right now, in this eternal moment where all creation exists. This is the truth, this is the way, this is the supreme secret that changes everything, and now it's yours. Use it wisely, use it consciously, use it with love and with intention to create good not just for yourself but for all, because when you recognize your unity with the universal mind you also recognize your unity with all of life, and what you create for yourself you create for the whole. What you manifest in your consciousness ripples out into the collective consciousness, what you become inspires others to become. This is the true magic of manifestation, this is the real power of consciousness. It's not just about getting what you want, it's about remembering who you are and helping others remember who they are. It's about raising consciousness not just individually but collectively. It's about being a light in the darkness, a testament to what's possible when a human being aligns with their divine nature. This was Genevieve Behrend's gift to the world. This is what she lived and taught and demonstrated. And now this gift has been passed to you. What will you do with it? How will you use it? Who will you become through understanding and applying this supreme secret? The answer unfolds moment by moment as you make your assumptions, as you persist in your consciousness, as you live from the truth of your unity with infinite intelligence. And I for one cannot wait to see what you create, because you are powerful beyond measure, you are capable of miracles, you are consciousness itself having a human experience, and there is nothing you cannot be, do, or have once you truly understand this, once you really get it, once you live it every single day. This is why nothing changes until this is understood, because this understanding changes everything. It transforms your relationship with reality. It shifts you from victim to creator, from limited to unlimited, from separated to unified, and from that new consciousness, that new identity, that new way of being, all things become possible, all desires become accessible, all dreams become achievable, not someday, not eventually, but now, in this eternal present moment where all of consciousness exists, where all of creation dwells, where you and the universal mind are one, and from that oneness, that unity, that recognition of your true nature, you can create anything, manifest anything, become anything. This is the promise, this is the truth, this is the supreme secret that Genevieve Behrend discovered over a century ago and that remains as true and as powerful today as it was then. Consciousness creates reality. You are consciousness, therefore you create your reality. It's that simple, it's that profound, it's that transformative, and now that you know it, now that you understand it, there's only one thing left to do. Live it, be it, embody it, make it your truth, your practice, your way of life, and watch as your world transforms before your very eyes, not through magic or miracle but through the scientific application of the law of consciousness, the law that governs all creation, the law that Behrend mastered and taught and now lives through you as you claim your power and step into your destiny as a conscious creator. This is your moment, this is your time, this is your invitation to change everything by understanding the one thing that changes everything. That you are not separate from the infinite, you are not limited by the finite, you are consciousness itself, unlimited, unbounded, infinite in potential and power, and from this day forward you can choose to live from that truth, to create from that consciousness, to manifest from that understanding, and nothing will ever be the same, because once you truly understand this, once you really get it at the cellular level, at the soul level, at the depth of your being, you cannot unknow it, you cannot unsee it, you cannot go back to the old limited way of being. You can only move forward into the expansion, into the abundance, into the fullness of life that has always been your birthright, waiting for you to claim it, waiting for you to recognize it, waiting for you to step into it through the power of consciousness, through the magic of assumption, through the truth of your unity with all that is, was, and ever shall be. If something shifted inside you while watching this, don't let it fade. Subscribe, and share in the comments what you realized today. Because awareness grows when it is acknowledged.